Hello everyone, my name is Bruna Potecchi. I'm a postdoc researcher at the Federal University of São Carlos in São Paulo State in Brazil. I have been working with lawmaking in the Brazilian Congress, mainly by conducting ethnography of the Chamber of Deputies that will be briefly explored in this talk. I'm especially concerned with gender debate in lawmaking and political debates, analyzed through the ethnography of legal documents I've been developing. This means that legislative documents such as bills, amendments, votes, substitute versions of bills are explored in my research, as well as the discourse in the proper meetings where they took place in the Brazilian legislative. This speech builds on my ongoing postdoctoral research carried out between February and August 2021, which followed the processing of legislative proposals in two commissions in the Brazilian Chamber of Deputies: the Social Security and Family Commission and the Defense of Women's Rights Commission. With this project, I seek to bring forth how the current context of Brazilian politics, especially after the last elections in 2018 that elected the authoritarian and conservative President Jair Bolsonaro, impacts on the rights and debates on women's rights in the legislature. After Bolsonaro's election in 2018, women's rights have been under threat from Bolsonaro's agenda. In fact, gender and women's rights have become a major area of political contention and dispute in Brazil in recent years. By exploring the political debates in these commissions, I argue that women's rights have been contested by mainly two political blocs. On one side, there are those who claim to widening rights and its effect. On the other, there are those who seek to transform them through more conservative framing. I now give you a soundbite from one of the debates I witnessed by quoting the deputy Cristo Nieto from the same party as Bolsonaro during the discussions about a bill in the Social and Security Family Commission. Start quoting. Despite the fact that the initiative is worthy and necessary, we are concerned about the use of terminologies, expressions of an ideological nature that go against the grain of protecting pregnant women. The first is this expression reproductive planning, given that it has been used, especially by international organizations and the UN, for the promotion and feasibility of abortion, which is foreseen in our criminal legislation as a crime, under the argument of an alleged necessity of population control. End quote. This passage was presented in a separate vote, presented as a written document that was read by its author to the report and substitute version of the Bill 853 of 2019, proposing a National Week of Awareness of the Rights of Pregnant Women, when it was being voted on by the Social Security and Family Commission in the Chamber of Deputies. All this happens between April and July 2021. The same passage read in a section of the committee by its author, Cristo Nieto, would be approved as a report by the committee in order to proceed with the processing of Bill 853 in the Chamber of Deputies. During these months, it was the most debated bill on the agenda of the Social Security and Family Commission. It was removed several times from the Commission's agenda and voting was postponed. One of these votings was annulled and the annulment was later revoked. It also had a change of vote by some parliamentarians and had some substitute versions presented and represented by the rapporteurs Carmen Zanotto, Vivi Reis, and Cristo Nieto. However, the bill presented by Deputy Samia Bonfim was considered worthy by all those who spoke at the sections, as it would not change the legislation but would create a week of awareness and promotion of rights. The separate vote inaugurated a sequence of meetings that would bring to the debate a set of women's rights, such as reproductive planning, but also, in a more general way, the very idea of rights. According to the words of the author of the separate vote, her separate vote, that had together a substitute version of the bill, was intended to restrain terms of an ideological nature that, as it was getting clear through the debates during the meetings, would be those that promoted sexual and reproductive rights in order to encourage abortion. This political move carried out by Deputy Cristo Nieto was not an isolated incident, nor did it stand out from other events in this political context in which those meetings were taking place. A similar attempt happened in the processing of Bill 557 of 2020, which, now I'm quoting, institutes the week for the estimation of women who made history in the basic education schools in the country, end quote, which was also being discussed during those months in 2021, but then in the Commission for the Defense of Women's Rights. The bill was presented by Congresswoman Tabata Amaral and had Deputy Cristo Nieto voting or declaring against its approval, as she would be against impositions, according to her own words, on schools, such as adding famous female thinkers such as Simone de Beauvoir and Judith Butler to the content of the classes, since, as she mentioned, only feminists would be celebrated. According to the Congresswoman, the bill would serve as an engine for the propagation of feminist ideology in schools. In other words, Congresswoman Cristo Nieto had been trying to restrain initiatives that could, in Bolsonaro's and Tonieto's thinking, be part of what they dismiss as gender ideology. In Brazil, the rise of evangelical politicians and political parties of the far right that have taken place in the recent years has boosted these discourses of gender ideology, which forms part of a backlash against sexual and reproductive rights, leading to debates about possible threats to already existing rights, for women especially. The expression gender ideology was coined by the Vatican as a response to the 94 United Nations Conference in Cairo and the 95 World Conference in Beijing. It was used as a strategy to curb sexual and reproductive rights. The fear that underpins its use is that the so-called nature or traditional family would be at risk from the widespread use of categories such as gender. Brazil has seen an alliance between Catholics, evangelicals, and other conservative groups emerge in the legislative chambers of Congress. Also, aligned with neoliberal parties, this dates back to the aftermath of the Cairo and Beijing conference in the 90s, and today makes for a strong backlash against rights related to gender and sexuality. Gender ideology, as a dismissive political term, has been used to stop legislative advances related to sexual and gender diversity. Whereas sexual and reproductive rights, when admitted to public policies in the country, increase women's access to health, in addition to expanding possible ways of exercising sexuality, we see today how the debate around sexual and reproductive rights is associated with cases of possible defense of a conservative and religious model of the family of sexuality, where abortion appears as the apex of deviation from these acceptable behaviors and practices. The expansion of women's health to reproductive rights seem to destabilize notions of family and promote homosexuality as well as abortion, as seen in the debate over the Bill 853 of 19. In this case, legislative expressions such as reproductive planning, humanized care for pregnant women, the sexual division of domestic work, The figure of the partner of pregnant woman during pregnancy, which did not necessarily refer to the father, were removed from the approved version of the bill as they were seen to threaten conservative notions of the family and related values, according to conservative congresswomen such as Toniet. Although the bill is considered worthy by all those congressmen who spoke about it, it seems to divide opinions by placing itself at the meeting point between those who defend sexual and reproductive rights as a means of accessing citizenship and those who condemn such rights as a skillful practice to confront a traditional idea of family and enable abortion. In other words, human reproduction, centered on the figure of the pregnant woman, is important in these two discourses. On the one hand, there is the continuity of the family, and on the other, the consecration of rights for pregnant women. Two contradictory trends are happening simultaneously. At the same time, as sexual and reproductive rights have been making headway with new conquests and strengthening of rights for decades, a conservative tide going in the other direction is gathering pace under the guise of protecting the family, reinforcing care as a legislative focus rather than rights. In my view, drawing on Melinda Cooper's analysis of families as a political project in the convergence of neoliberalism and neoconservatism to reduce state responsibility, this attempt is part of reducing women as a subject of rights before the state. Analyzing the running of Bill 853 brings to light more questions to be addressed. So, what threats can a humanized treatment for pregnant women have for those who repudiate sexual and reproductive rights? Why is it that the dissemination of rights and not just care, as stated in the different versions of Bill 853 in conservative eyes, threaten the conservative values or, for that matter, promote abortion? How can the physical and emotional health of the pregnant woman or the existence of a partner corrupt this logic? The answers seem to point to intentional deconstruction of the woman's place as a citizen by the far right in an attempt to reinforce maternal aspects as natural to woman and reduce her space as a subject with rights, but full of innate obligations to the family. So that's my talk. Thank you for staying until here.